This is CNN Breaking News.
This breaking news, a judge has just ordered former Vice President Mike Pence to testify before a federal grand jury. That is related to the special counsel's January 6th investigation. Let's get straight to our reporter, CNN's Caitlin Polantz. Caitlin, what more do we know?
Well, I'm just learning from a source that Mike Pence, the former vice president, does have to testify to the grand jury investigating January 6th, that federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. Not only does he have to testify, but he will have to testify about conversations he had with Donald Trump himself leading up to January 6th. So that crucial piece of information that the Justice Department has sought and that Pence has sort of divulged in his public speeches and in his book previously, but that the grand jury has not heard about yet. The conversations before January 6th when Donald Trump and Mike Pence were on the phone one-on-one, and Donald Trump apparently was berating him, calling him names, that sort of thing in this criminal investigation. He is going to have to share that. Now, we have confirmed, too, that this ruling came down yesterday in the D.C. District Court from the new Chief Judge, Jeb Boasberg. He also shot down Donald Trump's arguments that the conversation should be protected because of presidential secrecy, executive privilege. So Trump lost in this court fight, and Pence does have to testify about some of these things. But Pence also got a little bit of a win himself in that this judge decided that Mike Pence, as the vice president, should have some protection around his work on January 6th when he says he was operating as somebody as part of Congress, as the vice president, the presiding officer over the Senate. So he doesn't necessarily have to testify about what happened on January 6th itself, but those crucial questions about what happened before that date and what happened between him and Trump, this judge says he is going to have to share that. Now, of course, he could appeal, but this is a major ruling in the special counsel investigation.
And Caitlin, how much of a victory is this for Jack Smith, the special counsel?
It's another victory for special counsel Jack Smith. He has locked up testimony from Mike Pence's top aides. He has gotten many, many rulings in his favor where Donald Trump has tried to block answers before this grand jury. I mean, this is a really crucial one because in a lot of ways, Mike Pence is one of the ultimate victims on January 6th. And so what his interactions were with Trump could be quite important to a criminal case if that is what the grand jury is investigating right now. So, Alex, it is quite serious. It also is quite serious that the courts are diving into this question of what is the vice president? Does he get the protections of Congress? And it looks like there is a ruling there. We'll have to see if the appeals court firms up any of the law around that, though. Alex?
Yeah, the special counsel, of course, also carrying out a simultaneous investigation on the classified documents, proceeding quietly but quickly, it seems, and as Caitlin just noted, has had a series of victories of late. Caitlin Polantz, terrific reporting. We'll get back to you. Thank you so much. Now, with me now is CNN anchor and senior legal analyst Laura Coates and CNN senior political analyst Gloria Borger. Laura, I want to go to you first. Your reaction to this ruling?
I mean, it's extraordinary. We have the former vice president of the United States having to testify in a grand jury against the person that he served under, the former president, Donald Trump. Remember, he has been thinking that he may have to do this for quite some time. But let's delineate two things here, Alex. On the one hand, it's his role as the president of the Senate and the vice president. So what he's talking about on the floor as a member of the Senate, so to speak, in that capacity, is not part of this inquiry. What is relevant here is what Trump may have said to him prior to January 6th. Did he acknowledge that he'd lost the election? Did he seek to try to block certification? What specifically did he say? Was there anything threatening? What were the terms that he wanted him to abide by? What steps were actually taken to try to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power in our American democracy? All of this extremely relevant, and yet another defeat. Remember, you've got former attorneys and current attorneys of Trump who have been asked to testify in the grand jury, a federal grand jury. Now you've got somebody who was the second in command, who of course was threatened on January 6th, who was a bit of a hero for so many on that day for standing true, now having to testify about things that the president said to him. This is an extraordinary moment in American history.
And Gloria, Pence is in an interesting position. He was subpoenaed. He defied the subpoena. He has, at the same time, been critical of President Donald Trump and his actions around January 6th. Pence, of course, was in the Capitol. So what was the Pence thinking here in resisting having to testify?
Well, in conversations that I've had, I think that the people who are close to Pence sort of assumed at some point he would have to testify about something. And as Caitlin was saying earlier, he might not have to testify when he was in the Senate, but these conversations, between Donald Trump and Mike Pence before January 6th are very important, because what they're trying to find out is any instances in which Donald Trump may have acted corruptly, whether he spoke with Mike Pence about trying to overturn the election, for example, and as Laura was saying, whether he actually admitted to his vice president at any point that he knew that he had lost the election. And, in Mike Pence's book, he wrote about a private lunch 13 days after the election in which he told Donald Trump that he should just accept defeat and go on and think about perhaps running again. I think they're going to want to flesh that out about whether Donald Trump actually indicated to him that he knew that he had been defeated. So this is very, very important when you talk about the insurrection and how they might want to build a case against the former president and whether he incited an insurrection knowing full well that he had lost an election.
And Laura, this does come on the heels of this judge also ordering other top aides, including Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, to testify in this very same case. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a sense that the classified documents investigation is nearing its end, while Jack Smith's other investigation into January 6th might not be as far along. But what does this tell us about where this investigation stands?
Well, you can imagine almost the idea of a boa constrictor going around its particular victim, because it's tightening around the former president of the United States. We are almost color coding the various investigations surrounding Donald Trump at this point in time. And now you have the loss of privilege at the executive privilege level. The attorney-client privilege has now been pierced in a variety of ways. And then you've got this idea of a probably more clear-cut case about the classified documents. It's a finite universe. You know when they were supposed to be handed over. You know that they were not handed over. He has admitted to not wanting to do so and has provided some justification in his mind that is not really viable as to why he can retain them. That's a little bit more open and shut. Either you handed him over or you did not. Either you had your attorney do something nefarious or you did not. The January 6th one, as we all know, is a much more comprehensive and complex case to look at. It involves whether or not he gave a virtual code red. Was there a conspiracy? Was there seditious action by a former president of the United States at the time he was the president? So it would make sense if the Jack Smith special counsel is to essentially complete one investigation that's far less complex and then continue to build on the next one